Welcome to TruPowur, home of the most powerful marketing tools, training, and technology on planet Earth. Get ready to earn, enjoy, and experience more than you ever dreamed was possible. If you're tired of just getting by and ready to really thrive, then buckle in and listen up. Here's your host, Matt Fox.
Hello and welcome to TruPowur Academy and week 6 of our Back to Basics training series. Today, we're diving into a topic that every professional in sales and business development encounters at some point, and that is call reluctance. Leading us through this session is someone who not only understands the challenges, but also has the tools and strategies to help you overcome them. Allison Fox will walk us through the impact of call reluctance, the common signs and types, and most importantly, proven ways to overcome it so you can move forward with confidence, clarity, and results. Let's give a warm welcome to Allison as she guides us through how to banish call reluctance.
Welcome back to TruPowur Academy and week 6 of Back to Basics. Today we're going to talk about banishing call reluctance. Over the last 6 weeks, we've talked about a lot of things that we need in order to get set up for success as an agent. And one of the other things to keep in mind is as you put together your virtual call center and as you build your book of business, you're always going to have other aspects of your selling career that you're going to need to manage. And one of those things is indeed call reluctance. Today, we'll talk a little bit about the impact of call reluctance, 3 causes of call reluctance, how you can spot the signs of call reluctance and make corrections, the different varying types of call reluctance, and how your time is really all you have. Time is money. And so our ability to use our time as effectively as possible is critical to long-term success. So what exactly is call reluctance? We'll talk a little bit more about what call reluctance is, but it's a very potent factor in your sales career, particularly when you're remote. It has been studied over the last 50 years extensively, and what we've learned over that time is that 40% of salespeople experience call reluctance routinely. And I would say probably 100% of salespeople experience call reluctance as they first get started. When you look at that over the course of a month or over a year, it adds up to almost 15 to 16 missed opportunities or missed sales in a given month. And when you have average sales of even a modest amount like $2,000, that's a significant impact to your bottom line. One of the roots of call reluctance that is so pervasive is just giving up too early in the sales cycle. What we've learned is that it really does take at least anywhere between 6 and 17 touches in order to make a sale. So if you're experiencing call reluctance, and even a form of call reluctance in which you are able to place the first call, but on the first sign of resistance, you decide to never call that prospect back again, that will have a profound impact on your long-term results. It also is the number one reason why most salespeople quit. They just simply fear the phone or allow call reluctance to get embedded in their mindset, and it ultimately causes them to decide to leave sales. So it's a really critical component. And it's one of those things that, especially when we're working remotely, we're going to personally need to tend to this ourselves. You can overcome call reluctance in some ways when you're in a bullpen or in a call center, because the way that peer pressure works, and in some salespeople, particularly competitive ones, they will be driven to not experience or give in to call reluctance based on other people being around. But when you're working remotely, or you're in a small co-working office, or even in a small, rented facility where you may be the only person present when you're making your calls, call reluctance can creep in with very little brakes on it. So what causes call reluctance? Why do we experience call reluctance, and what exactly is it? Well, I think first and foremost, is the fear of rejection. Most people do not like to be rejected. It's something that is embedded in us. We're behavioral animals. We crave and need companionship and social interaction and social acceptance. And so putting yourself out there and calling a stranger is kind of flying in the face of some of the ways that we set ourselves up to succeed in social situations in which, we have visual cues on what we can use to try to stir up a conversation with somebody. When you're just on the other end of a phone, it's pretty difficult to make a connection. And that leads to people not necessarily being as interested in talking with us as they may be when we're in person. And so, in the back of our minds, when we experience call reluctance, in some ways, we're kind of anticipating the worst case scenario that I will be rejected. There are other people that have a fear of looking silly or being unprepared, and they will spend an inordinate amount of time preparing for sales calls. And that can rear its head in feeling like I'm not properly prepared. I'll make the calls once I learn everything. Once I can be an expert in this, then I'll make the calls. This is particularly potent in later career individuals. For example, if you find somebody, not unlike myself, that is previously been an expert and highly influential in another line of work, and then they have to start over as a beginner or without the same domain expertise as they had in their previous career, it can really manifest itself in call reluctance. I will call once I feel like I'm at the same level I was executing on prior. That is a psychological trick that your mind plays on you to avoid rejection, and it's not reality. It also is embedded in kind of I don't know what it is about salespeople, but most people have an opinion about salespeople. They may have a negative bias towards them, like they don't like to be sold. They don't see themselves as playing a valuable facilitator in commerce. They see themselves as kind of the low man on the totem pole for whatever reason, or especially if somebody came out of a hard science or engineering background, they almost feel like it's inauthentic to be a salesperson, like in some way, by actually negotiating or presenting something for sale, it in some way makes them less of a professional or something along those lines. So I've seen that quite a great deal. And it's almost like a shame of being a salesperson, and it needs to be nipped in the bud. So when we're working remotely and we're encountering these feelings of not wanting to pick up the phone, or the day ends and you didn't make the calls and you're reinforcing in your mind, like, I'll just get on the phones the next day. I don't understand why I didn't do it today. You need to be able to spot the early warning signs that you are experiencing call reluctance. And I come back and refer to this pretty frequently because I definitely struggle with call reluctance. If you find yourself frequently procrastinating, like you had set a time to get on the phones, but for whatever reason, everything else becomes a better priority than getting on the phones. For example, doing a load of wash, calling your mother back, letting the dog out, starting dinner, doing another load of wash. The list is endless of the things you can find when you're not in a bullpen and you're not in a call center, of things that you can do to delay getting on the phone. You can go down rabbit holes. One of the great things about the internet is you can have access to a ton of information. Guess what? It's also a source of a giant time suck as you go down rabbit holes over preparing for things. There's no shortage of information that you can investigate as you do not get on the phone. As I mentioned earlier, there are people that are interested in the money that is promised by a sales career, but in their heart of hearts, they kind of feel like they're not cut out to be a salesperson, or that it's somehow shameful to be a salesperson, or they have a lot of hangups about maybe what they thought they were going to be, and that maybe sales has become like a default backup plan, and it is not necessarily where they want to be with their life. There's all kinds of stuff going on in their mind about this topic, about what they want to be when they grow up. For whatever reason, salespeople and the role of a salesperson comes with a fair amount of baggage, and it comes up in the form of call reluctance. This also can be manifested in not asking for referrals. You meet a great customer, you do a great job. They repeatedly tell you, this has really made a difference. I'm so grateful that I found you. I'm so glad that we're working together. And yet, as the time that you're talking to them comes to an end, instead of asking for the referral, like, hey, I know you really experienced an enormous amount of benefit. My business is built on referrals. Can you think of another company or a colleague of yours that would also benefit from learning about the value that we create? Not asking for that referral is a form of call reluctance. That in some way, that if you ask for a referral, you're in some way, I don't know, not being solely focused on the person that you are asking for the referral from. I don't know what that is, but you need to get rid of that form of call reluctance as well. And I think the number one thing that, really is a top sign of call reluctance is imagining the worst case scenario. We've all done it. We've sat at our desk. It's time to get on the phone. And you think to yourself, I'm going to make all these calls and I'm not going to have a single conversation that is going to be actionable. It's just going to be a series of letdowns. I'm just going to, experience that I'm not experienced yet. I'm not, the person that I need to be. And whatever reason, this worst case scenario that is a form of cognitive distortions. If anyone on the call has ever heard about cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a very potent form of dealing with interpersonal relationships and seeing what your role is in interpreting environments. One of the cognitive distortions that is talked about in cognitive behavioral therapy is the worst case scenario. You think everything is going to end up a catastrophe, and it's simply not true. But it is a sign that call reluctance is creeping into your day-to-day life. They've studied this so much that they actually have types of call reluctance, and they're pretty actually explicit. For example, the doomsayer, somebody, as I mentioned, who only focuses on the catastrophic results that could be coming down their way. They worry all the time. They refuse to take any kind of risk personally. They fear and avoid rejection to such a degree that it just looks like doom and gloom wherever they turn. There is, again, the over-prepare. I am definitely guilty of this. I want to know everything before I get on the horn, and that's just simply not possible. And that over-analysis and overthinking leads to me underacting and underperforming. Stage fright, that's a huge one. I especially, as you guys have witnessed over the last 6 weeks, I don't enjoy being photographed. I don't enjoy being filmed necessarily. And it's a form of stage fright. And that can also come in the form of call reluctance. You're calling a stranger. You don't know if you're going to sound particularly confident. You don't know if you have mastery of the subject. And you're afraid that if you make a presentation, even to one person or many people, it's going to be overwhelming. This happens quite a bit in public speaking. That's why Toastmasters is such an effective antidote to that. There is such a thing as being afraid to present, afraid to present in front of a group of individuals or even in front of one person over the phone. As I mentioned, being ashamed of being a salesperson. For whatever reason, people, love successful salespeople and love, seeing them flaunt signs of wealth, but they themselves think, well, I could never be that. I don't deserve that. I shouldn't be that. They have all kinds of baggage related about that. That is a role rejection form of call reluctance. There is the people pleaser, the yielder. I don't want to push somebody beyond their comfort zone. I don't want to intrude on them. I'm afraid that if I ask them to do something that they hadn't thought about doing, I'm in some way going to ruffle the feathers, and I'd rather yield and avoid confrontation. And then there is the socially self-conscious, somebody who feels like I can't call on this person. They're too much smarter than me. They're too much better connected than me. They're so much more socially connected than me. They wouldn't want to talk to me. I'll never fit into this peer group. They have such a different command of the business world than I do. I couldn't possibly understand their situation. It's the fear of selling up, fear of stepping away from our cohort and selling to a more senior individual. Then there's the separationist, somebody who just loathes to do business with friends. I can sell anybody, but don't ask me to sell my uncle. Definitely don't ask me to sell, to somebody that is, I want to keep work and my social life and my personal life separate. Never the twain shall meet. That is a form of call reluctance. If you truly believe in what you do and you're creating value with each and every transaction, why wouldn't you help the people that you're closest to? But this is a thing. People tend to feel like I don't want to show that side of myself to the people that are closest in our lives. Let's keep things separate. That also takes the form of family. Now, I know some of the people on the call have heard me say that it's not an ideal situation to try to sell in a new power consulting book of business building exercise the people that are closest to us, because whether it's right or wrong, family members may not always see us for our latest incarnation of who we are becoming or what we have become. I have kind of encountered that personally, where there is, a person sees me as they saw me in a previous incarnation of myself. They're not necessarily who I am today, and they can't necessarily bridge the gap. This definitely happened with my dad. But as I got older and as my accomplishments spoke for themselves, I had a little bit less of a call reluctance on that. But I can think of one or two circumstances where that emotional unanticipation or emancipated thing really affected my ability to create value with everybody that I came in contact with. Some people feel like if they give a referral or if they receive a referral, that's somehow harder to do or more laden with meaning. I don't know quite how that works, but there is some aversion to asking for referrals. I really hope no one on the phone is like this right now, but if you fear the phone, this is going to be a tough road to hoe. You've got to love the phone. The phone is your friend. The phone will be there for you when nothing else is. You cannot have telephobia and not recognize that fear of connecting with strangers as something that is not anything but call reluctance. Feeling like you, as I mentioned, sometimes in mid-career or late career individuals that are making an industry change or a role change, they're so obsessed with having been a pro in their previous role in their previous industry that when they're asked to step out of their comfort zone and try on a new type of thing, they simply just can't do it. They're like, I don't like being a beginner. I don't like looking like I'm a novice. I want to be back as the expert, and I need to be a hyper pro. And then, probably the most insidious one is the final one, which is oppositional reflex. So there are some people that just don't like to be told what to do. There are some people that just don't want to take responsibility for their own results and their actual actions. And so as a result, their call reluctance shows up as arguing. Why do I have to be on the phone? Why didn't you give me what I needed in order for me to be on the phone when I wanted to be on the phone? Why do you keep telling me to pick up the phone? Why are you telling me to keep selling? Any attempt to coaching, this person sees as a unwilling prod or an unwelcome prod to actually make things happen. And that can be a form of call reluctance. I'm not going to pick up the phone because I'm not going to do what he told me to do. And that really can be present when we don't necessarily take an active level of ownership in what our personal results and our personal contribution to results are. All right, so I've told you, a number of ways how call reluctance shows up, what the signs are, and the different versions of it. But what do we do with this information? I mean, this is some pretty toxic stuff. I mean, how are we going to get on with our life, and how are we going to make this work? Well, you can overcome it. And if you've been listening over the last 5 weeks, you will see elements of how we overcome call reluctance in things that I've already discussed. Having a daily schedule and a routine helps eliminate when you're going to do something. If you know you need to be on the phones by 8 a.m. and you know that you're going to get to your desk at 7:30 to make sure your coffee's there, the phone is ready, all distractions are putting away, everything is ready for you to get on the phone and bang out 150 calls based on you committing to being on the phone at 8 a.m., that is a way of inoculating yourself against call reluctance, because the schedule is what the schedule is. I need to show up. I need to get this done. When we also build in ways to take care of our mental health in the forms of either meditating or setting our intention for the day, I am a huge believer in affirmations. I have a section of Pinterest that I call my Give Me Joy morning routine, where I will scan things related to my mental well-being and my mindset before I even get to the gym in the morning. And I do that because if I plant those seeds in my mind that, look, you're already off to a good start, you're already doing what you need to do, you're already having a win in the column, that form of mental housekeeping is something that I think is an incredible part of your sales career, making sure that you're mentally fit enough to motivate yourself. Starting off early, not being late to the game. That's why I make sure 30 minutes before I need to be on the phone that everything is ready at my desk. I get a head start on my day. I don't show up wondering, where's my stuff? Gosh, I forgot my coffee. Where's my headset? What's going on? That is something that I want to avoid like the plague, because when those moments of transition happen, this is where call reluctance will show up. Oh man, my headset isn't there. I don't have my coffee. Why don't I just go run a load of wash? Why don't I call my mom back? Why don't I let the dog out? Why don't I start dinner? The list will be endless. Next thing you know it's an hour and a half and you haven't done anything. So do yourself a favor and have a schedule and get a head start on your day and set yourself up to mentally succeed. I mentioned a little bit about a challenge I had a week and a half ago where my attitude was not where it needed to be because I was encountering an enormous amount of gatekeepers and negativity on the calls that I was making. And so I thought to myself, I have one way of fixing this. I'm going to put a mirror in front of my monitor, and I'm going to smile at myself and look goofy at myself in the mirror, because the best way for me to change my mental mindset is to change my physical reaction to what I'm doing. That's a mirror. Get up and walk around. As I mentioned, I had a wireless headset because I like to walk and be energetic when I'm listening. And when I commit, prioritizing calls during your power hour is another form of avoiding call reluctance, because when you prioritize staying on the phone or making a certain number of dials so you can take a break, stretch your legs, let the dog out, whatever it is, by prioritizing calls during your power hour, you are forcing yourself into a disciplined approach. Productivity is a direct result of discipline and strong will. You don't necessarily have to be the happiest, sunniest person on the planet or wanting to do something in order to change your physiological response to that request. You can get up and do jumping jacks for 10 minutes. You can do the physiological sigh if you need to do a mental reset because of stress. There's lots of ways where you can fake energy to make energy. And if you haven't ever recorded yourself talking when you have in fact, I just forced myself to smile. If you haven't listened to your voice when you're smiling versus when you're frowning, you owe it to yourself to hear what fake energy can do to the compelling component of your messaging. There is something to be said that people want to talk to people that are of a sunnier disposition. There is also, the reliance and the muscle memory that is created by the memorization of a script. When you go back to the script and you have that embedded in your mind, it rolls off your tongue like nothing. It's muscle memory at that point. And that allows you to not fall into the trap of over-preparedness or thinking, I can't make these calls. I didn't learn the script. I don't know what I'm going to say. What if this guy talks to me like that? Get rid of that mental strife and struggle in your mind by relying on the script. Do yourself a favor and memorize it so you don't even have to think about what the contents of the script are. Just go back to the script and let your body kick in. When you encounter that the script isn't working, and this just happened to me on Monday, where the script that I was targeting for an A/B testing of a sales cadence, I thought was going to work. It was not working. And so I really had to stop and think to myself, okay, after 29 different ways that I have used this, it's not a right fit for this. It's a good concept, but it needs to be reworked. So I put another alternative script in there. I didn't say, okay, well, I have to scrap this and I need to go prepare and I need to stay off the phone. No, I had another script ready, just went and reverted to an alternative script. As I mentioned, I have been remote for many, many years. And as I got older, I also uncovered that sitting at my desk and being on the phone for 9 hours straight can come with a physical cost. And how it came in the form to me was that I felt like I couldn't walk. I felt like my legs were like cement pillars. And so I had to kind of create a recovery ritual in which, after I had accomplished like 50 calls or a diehard presentation that I felt was effective, I need to get up and run around for a second. I needed to eat a little food. I had to have a recovery ritual. And if I hit the goals that I needed by a certain time, guess what? I get to leave early. So if I have a 150 call goal for the day and that goes as planned, I have gotten to the point in my life that I can say, you know what? I put in a solid effort. I hit everything I needed to do. And even if it's 4:30 in the afternoon, I'm ending. We did it. It's done. And that recovery ritual is important to me to reinforce the things that went well. And then there is some amount of this to just pick up the goddamn phone. I hate to use that language, but I can't tell you how many conversations I have with folks that are early career when I was growing them as recruiters, and they'd say, I don't want to pick up the phone. And I'm like, you need to pick up the phone. In fact, I can remember a distinct conversation where somebody said to me, I just simply do not like the phone. I do not like meeting people. I do not like, expanding my horizons. And I thought to myself, you are not cut out for this. I mean, if you don't like talking to people and you don't like meeting them in real life and you don't like picking up the phone, we're going to have a major problem, because I cannot hand deliver people to you every day, every hour of the day. And so at some point, you really do need to pressure test how much you love the phone and just pick up the phone and start dialing. Because if it is truly going to be a battle for yourself on a day in and day out basis, you need to really think about what that means. And it's okay to not be a salesperson or not like the phone, but wanting to be a salesperson and then not picking up the phone is an answer in itself. And so when we look at overcoming call reluctance, at some point you just need to do the work and pick up the phone. And when you do, and you have a success, you need to amplify that success in your mind to such a degree that you now associate picking up the phone with happiness and with some sort of a result. Because if you do that, you will begin to condition yourself to not fear the phone. Now, when this all comes down to it, whether or not you are building a book of business building an organization, building an agency, or even working for somebody else because you decide that you don't want to be an independent power broker, whatever that is, the one thing that we can never recover is time. And call reluctance is a form of time wasting that is expensive. It is destructive. It serves no purpose in our lives other than making us feel frustrated and unhappy about the results that we are experiencing. And it robs us of our ability to create value for other people. And if you learn one thing about the TruPowur value proposition, we will always defer to doing business with those companies that will benefit the most from the immediate market conditions. And when time is being robbed from you because of your unwillingness or your inability to recognize these psychological tricks that come up when you try to pursue a sales career, and you don't realize that your time is money, and whether that is because you're robbing yourself because it's your organization, or whether you are thinking that you're getting away with something by pulling a salary from somebody and wasting their time and money. nothing will ever change the fact that we can never get back the time that is gone. As we age, it becomes incredibly clear to us that time is the most valuable asset that we have. And if you want a potent example of exactly how valuable time is, yeah, I used to do this quite a great deal when people would say to me, well, I got plenty of time. I don't have to, it's no big deal if I take off a couple hours. I already did what I needed to do. Or take your adjusted gross salary, adjusted gross income from your previous year taxes and divide that by 2080, and you will discover exactly how much your hourly spend is. And when you start to become, a high producing salesperson, you'll begin to realize that, man, that time that I spent, doing those things which weren't on the schedule, procrastinating, over preparing, that little bit of time you thought, oh, I'll just investigate this and do a little more research. Well, that research could have been $250 worth of your time if you spent, a whole afternoon. So, don't, just because you're not getting paid for that time does not mean that you're not spending the money or wasting the money. Your time is money. If you don't know how much that's worth, you owe it to yourself to know how long, when you choose video games or not picking up the phone, what is that opportunity cost that you're spending by doing those activities that are not revenue generating activities. And in some cases, I am definitely one of these people that I think to myself, well, if I spend 2 hours working out, that time that might be worth $300 is something that I don't mind investing in myself, but it's a conscious decision that I make to tend to my health and my body during that time. And I'm happy to spend that time that time. However, when you do not value your time and you choose other things, that is a way of robbing yourself. So keep in mind that call reluctance is just one way that you rob yourself of your total potential. And recognizing the signs, creating ways that you can throttle that impact back, whether that's on the schedule, having the script, recognizing the things that are going on mentally with yourself and your form of preventing yourself from having genuine business discussions with people that are strangers, that ultimately is actually just robbing yourself. As many conversations as I have with people like, why didn't you do the calls that you committed to doing this week? It's not me that's disappointed. I mean, yes, I'm disappointed and I'm sorry that it hasn't worked out the way that we talked about, but the only person that you're robbing is yourself. These are commitments that I make to myself, that I owe it to myself that everything I do at the highest and best ability that I can in order to keep myself feeling like I'm doing what I need to make myself content and happy and satisfied with how I show up. And, when things become unmanageable for me and my time is being spent on things that I have ignored the impact on my life, I realized, look, that's an expensive proposition. When you waste time like that, you just threw away $1,000. And it may not be money that could have gone into my bank account, but it is kind of, because if I had done productive things with my time instead that resulted in revenue generating activities, I could ultimately have a financial reward as well as a sense of well-being and success and contentment with a job well done. So as insidious as it is to kind of put a number on the time that we have in our life, it's kind of mandatory, because it does tell us, gosh, when you didn't pick up the phone for 2 to 3 days when you said that you were going to do it, it's not me that is upset by that. It's you. It's actually, you're robbing yourself of your total potential. So as we think about these factors that go into the care and feeding of a great salesperson, and we get back to basics, consider the impact of call reluctance on your day-to-day life. Can you assign a value to the impact of call reluctance on your life right now? I bet you could. I bet you could sit down and actually write out, Are you one of those people that are the 40% of salespeople that are affected by call reluctance? If you are one of those people that are affected by call reluctance, how much money are you stealing from yourself on an annual basis? What accomplishment did you not hit because you chose to spend your time in a different way? And what impact does that really make in not tending to this important aspect of how we show up to be a salesperson? And understand that you're not alone. That every single salesperson, that number that they quoted, 40%, I bet it's 100% of salespeople. I've managed a bazillion people, and I can't think of a single one that hasn't had some version of call reluctance. And so knowing what causes it and how to spot the signs early in your day and early in your habits will really give you kind of almost a sense of camaraderie with your colleagues and the people that you work with. Understanding they're just like you. They have the same insecurities, the same distractions, the same kind of things that show up to them either through things that they see online or what they watch on TV or the people in their life and their impact and opinions on what they're doing. So notice to see the signs in yourself of call reluctance so that you can overcome it. Set yourself up so that you're less inclined to give in to those feelings that, maybe I'll just do it tomorrow, or why don't I just have another cup of coffee or get some lunch or go pick up the kids from school and then I'll get on the phone. Don't do it to yourself. One of the reasons why I emphasize schedules is that all of us are human beings. Most of us live in a family, have outside obligations, and interruptions happen. I can remember when my kids were still in my home, obviously I had to pick them up from school. They had practice. I had to make them dinner. There was all kinds of obligations independent of my professional life and my personal life that were related to raising a family. And so my ability to have a schedule when things came up, like, somebody had a fever and I had to go pick them up from school. We're supposed to be on the phone at 2:30. Instead, I'm picking them up. Guess what? I understand that if I look at my watch and it's now 3:15, I still have an hour and a half that I can drop them off and get back to my desk. I know where I need to be at any given time so that when interruptions happen, because they will, I know how to take it in stride, be able to, just move on and get back to my schedule. Knowing how you can reward yourself when you do the hard work, when it's not necessarily commission check. I mean, it's great to take a photograph of your commission checks or have in your mind, look at that award that you have, but it isn't necessarily a bad thing to have built-in ways of rewarding yourself, because time is ultimately money. And if you like to explore this with myself or anyone else on our team, we've all been sales professionals for the better part of 30, 40 years. We've been there, we've done that. We know how to set ourselves up to overcome these obstacles that are not maybe going to show up. They're definitely going to show up. So be ready to fight them when they do. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. Thinking about, the three calls that we have when we get you started as an agent. That doesn't need to be the only time that you explore how to expand your business and how to create more revenue generating activities. Recognizing call reluctance and trying to use that as a way to, diagnose why you're not getting on the phone is a very valuable part of your sales career. Book a session with me from the training category on the quick launch menu, or email me at success@trupower.net, or call me on my number. Happy to help. And I hope that this has been valuable for you. I hope that you don't investigate it too much, because I gave you a lot of what you need for you to stay on the phone, but be aware that this can show up and make a profound impact on your overall success. We've talked about a lot of things over the last 6 weeks that I know are going to be valuable for you as you build your book of business at TruPowur. But today's session is another of the mental aspects of being an effective salesperson that I wish to remind you of. As you think about ways to overcome call reluctance, I invite you to reach out to any one of us to try to talk about our experiences or how you can build in routines that will help you overcome it. But don't allow it to derail your efforts. Call it for what it is. It's just a normal part of being a person. So let's plan for it and overcome it. So enjoy.
Thank you, Allison, for such a powerful and practical session. Today, we learned how to identify the causes and signs of call reluctance, the different types that can hold us back, and strategies to overcome them. Remember, every call is an opportunity, and the cost of hesitation is often greater than the risk of rejection. Take what we've learned today and put it into action, because the more you pick up the phone, the more doors you open. Thank you again, Allison, and thank you all for being here on the call. Until next time, have fun storming the castle. Bye now.